Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Lance Tomashiro. I am super excited that you're here today because, well, we've got something brand new that is going to change the way that your online business operates. And it's not very often that Robert and I get to come out and say we've got something that you've never seen before, but this is unlike anything that you've ever seen before. We're really glad you're here. So what I'd like you to do first of all is to close everything down. You're going to want to pay attention to today because how many of you guys out there know what WordPress is and actually use WordPress? Go ahead and find the question box because you're going to want to know where that is for today's call. And while you are there, what I want you to do is type in simplify because what we know about WordPress and what we know about our own sites is that it becomes an absolute mess. I mean, how many times have you gone out and made a test site and it's just sat there? Or you've gone out and put up a product and it's just sat there and you forgot completely about it. I know for me personally, when I was going through and looking at some of this, I've got WordPress sites from 3 years ago that haven't been updated in 3 years. Do you know why that's so bad? Well, what's so bad about it is that that is open to vulnerability, not only to hack that site, but my entire server and all of my sites. And what we want to do today is get rid of all of that for you and show you a new way that you can manage all of your sites. And the great thing about what we're going to show you today is it's going to empower you to have even more sites and make even more money and have places for people to find you. In fact, the more sites you have, the better when you've got this tool. So it looks like you guys all know where that question box is. If you are ready to go, then type in yes and help me welcome Mr. Robert Plank to show you the ultimate productivity tool for WordPress.
Awesome. I'm super glad to be here, Mr. Lance Tomashiro. And I mean, we've all heard about that cliche or that problem that everyone seems to have where the tool that you thought was going to solve all your problems now is your problem in that you needed to solve your original problem in the first place, right? Like kind of like in the same way that um, a couple years ago, if you told someone about the idea of like a smartphone or an iPhone, you thought, whoa, that would solve literally everything, every problem I'd ever have, right? I could have this device, I could look up anything, do anything. Next thing you know, now it takes over your whole life. Now it's always going off. Now it's always got Facebook. And in the same kind of way, well, this thing called WordPress kind of took the same path, right? Where if you told someone years ago, what if I were to tell you that there was a way you can make a website and you can just click a button and the website's on there, right? And you can just click a button and now you can have a blog kind of site. Click a button, now you have a membership site. You don't have to edit code. You don't have to FTP any kind of files. You don't have to do any of that. You just click around and you want your website to look different, click a button and get a different theme. You want to add a pop-up to your site, click a button and get a pop-up. So if you told someone that years ago, they'd think, whoa, that is like the craziest thing I've ever heard. That's the most powerful thing you could ever create as far as building websites. But then now that you have it, well, now you're overwhelmed with all these choices of what to do, what to set up. And I mean, let's say you set up a few of these kind of WordPress sites. Well, what happens? Well, now you have to maintain a site like this. Now you might forget where it is. Now it goes out of date. And then you hear all this kind of scary stuff about how, well, such and such WordPress site, they let it get older and older and older, and it finally broke, right? Or people like Al Gore or Martha Stewart, their sites got hacked because they let the sites get older and older and older, didn't update the WordPress site, didn't update the plugins, and then there are all of these popularized ways to get into all these old WordPress sites. And so I want to get you past that. I want to get you to the point where the tool is very helpful, but I don't want the tool to strangle your efforts when it comes to making this thing called an online business. And so, I kind of worry about things happening in my online business, and I think that you kind of worry too. It's okay to worry a little bit because that means that we can solve the problems that are coming up before they actually happen. But with me, well, I know that I want to set up a site fast. The reason for that is because I know that if I have a good idea, I just want to get it done. I know that if I have a good idea on Monday, then on Wednesday or Thursday, the idea might be gone or something else might come up. There might be some other kind of emergency or fire I have to put out. So I need to get it done fast. But I don't want it to be a half-assed site. I want it to do everything I want. I want it to run quickly. But I also don't want to get hacked. And you always hear this crazy stuff about how people get hacked, not usually through their web host, but through their WordPress. They install a plugin with a backdoor on it, or they install WordPress and they leave the default password on and someone just walks right in. And the thing is, I mean, it's not like I'm telling you not to use WordPress because you definitely should use WordPress. I think WordPress is probably the greatest thing to happen to any of us internet marketers, any of us site builders. But I mean, you know what I'm talking about when I say that I probably have at least 10 or 20 sites that I don't even know are out there, right? You go and you set up some test sites, you try out some new plugin, some new theme, you try it out, you say, well, I want to update the theme on my existing site, but I'm just going to set up a new site so I can see how it looks before, messing around with something that's already working, right? You get the idea. And the problem is, we set up all these test sites and then forget about them. And what's really scary is we might come back to them 5 years later and they might be wide open, or they might be the way that these evil hackers got into our site. So we don't want that, right? But we, like I said, we do want to use WordPress. And as of a couple days ago, it now powers 25% of all websites. That's huge. And so if you're not using WordPress, if you're still using, the old school HTML web pages, then you're really behind and you're really doing a lot more work than you have to do. If you're using someone else's service that they might have came out, 6 months or a year ago to host the business that you rely on, the business that, pays for your kids' food, the business that pays for your mortgage. Well, what if that company suddenly goes out of business? I don't want my business to depend on someone else's business. So you probably should host your own website and run it on WordPress. That way you have control. That way if someone else goes out of business, you don't go out of business with them. So you use WordPress, and the best thing is that if you've used it, you don't have to code anything, you don't have to transfer any files. It's all point and click. You install it right into your control panel, and then you can go and add in, pages, posts, videos, plugins, stuff to secure it, stuff to make it a membership site, take payments. If you want to change the design and make it, for example, like a restaurant site. So what we do, or a lot of other people do, is you approach a local business, like a local restaurant, and you say, well, I'm going to make a site for you. And you charge them a couple $1,000 a month just for the site to keep up and running. That's easy money for you because you set it up once, and then they are just paying you to keep that site up and running. And so the other cool thing about WordPress too is that once you're logged into a site, well, you can add in other users so they can, go in and also help you out with the site, or users that can only post content, and you can go and update software. You've seen all this kind of cool stuff like this, right? So, WordPress is pretty good, but my only question for you is, how many WordPress sites do you have? And this is kind of a tricky question because isn't any answer you give to this question the wrong answer? Because if I ask you how many WordPress sites you have, well, if you say one, you probably feel bad. You're like, well, one, but I mean, if it's making money or if it's working, why don't I have 10? But then if I ask you this question, if you say you have 75 WordPress sites, well, then I think we all know what's going on with those 75 sites, right? Out of those 75, there's maybe five of them that you actually use, and some of them, maybe there's like 20 or 30 that you haven't logged into in a couple years. And so if the number is too small, then you feel bad because you don't have enough WordPress sites, and maybe even one's a lot to handle, and you're like, well, how am I even going to manage more than one? And if the answer is a real high number, then I think we both know that they're kind of old. They're kind of old sites that you haven't touched in a while, and you feel bad because they're not performing as well as they probably could. And the biggest thing about that is if you have 75 or 200 sites, well, are all those 75 sites up to date? Well, I can almost guarantee they aren't, right? If they're more than a month old, there's probably some theme or some plugin, or maybe even WordPress itself is out of date. And then the problem is like, okay, so I want to have sites, right? And I want to have my WordPress sites because that makes it easier, but I don't want them to be too out of date, but I also don't want to spend every single day of my life making sure all my stuff's up to date because I got to run a business here. I still got to actually do the things that make money. And so we asked around for what we could do to solve this problem. And so what I'm showing on the screen is one of the answers. And this guy says he has 800 domains, and he's trying to figure out how to proceed, right? Because some of them have WordPress sites, some of them should have WordPress sites, but then let's see, he set up a few when he first got started, but that was years and years ago. He forgot to log in, forgot some passwords. So now the problem is, well, so many, right? There's so many problems that first of all, he doesn't even know which domains have WordPress on them. And even on those sites, maybe there's a few folders where maybe there's a few WordPress sites even on a domain. And even if this guy could find the WordPress sites, he doesn't even know the password or the username to get back in. So I'm not showing you this to make fun of the person, just like, I mean, this is a real actual problem. And I mean, even me and Lance struggled with this problem. So Brenda here says, same kind of deal on a smaller scale. She doesn't have 800 domains, but she has 8 sites, and 5 of them are ones that she hasn't logged into for a while. So, I mean, it's kind of scary. It's a freaking mess. So you could easily spend, or if you want to, I mean, spending implies that you use your time and you got something back. I think it's more like you wasted. So you could easily waste a week or even all this month or even all until next year logging into this site and that site, figuring out what sites you have, what sites you don't have. And then what happens? Well, you say, okay, well, I've got all these sites and I've got to keep track of them. So maybe I can like go and, get like a spiral bound notebook and I could write out all the passwords and I can list all my sites and and I can just consult the master notebook. But then you say, but I mean, it's all these long passwords. Maybe, maybe I'll set them all to be the same, or maybe I'll go and I'll make a text file, right? I'll make a text file on my desktop, or I'll put it on my Dropbox. Well, the problem with putting all your passwords in a text file is, well, I mean, you can guess, right? If you lose it, you don't have any passwords, and if someone gets a text file, now that's how they have access to everything. That's Have you heard about like, a couple of years ago when Sony Pictures got hacked and they got access to all the movie making stuff? The reason why they hacked Sony was because they got access to the text file where someone stored all the passwords to everything, to all their YouTube accounts and all their other websites. So the text file won't work. And then you say, well, maybe I'll make a spreadsheet, right? I'll make it like a Microsoft Excel, and I'll say, well, I'm going to list the sites I have and list the passwords I have. But then you're going to have to, like, if you change the password in one place, you're going to have to update the spreadsheet. And then you say, okay, now I've got that organized, but it still isn't quite there, because you say, well, maybe on this site I have WordPress 4.0, on this site I have WordPress 3.5, and you list all this stuff, and then you're going to update it, and you're going to have to like cross this out and put what you have on the new site. It's a whole freaking mess, and you end up spending more time managing the site than you actually would doing things on the site. So that's not fun either. So, I mean, how many hours a day or how many hours a day do you think you might spend on average managing a site or just worrying it's out of date? Well, even if you spent 20 minutes a day on 20 sites, that's 6 hours a day. There's no time to even do anything else, right? So I think we've established that if you have more than a couple sites, this becomes a real problem. And I mean, writing it out on paper doesn't work, having it in a text file doesn't work, putting it on your hard drive, putting it on a spreadsheet, putting it on a Google Sheet, none of that stuff works, because I mean, you have to do all this back and forth. So if that's the first problem, is that some of these sites, they're just hard to manage in general. But then, well, let's throw in another problem just to make it even worse: is WordPress safe? Well, you tell me. So here's a web page that I went to, and what happens is they people have found the holes open in WordPress, right? And so they found a bunch this week, and they found a bunch this other week, and some of these are pretty dang scary, right? And some of these are just like for, let's see, for this one, I just wanted to put a podcast on my site. It looks like someone can get in. This one, I wanted to secure my site, and by adding a security plugin to my site, finally the irony is that now someone can get into my site. So that's kind of scary. Even when you look at, okay, you say, okay, well, this issue I found or someone found is from WordPress version 4.3. No big deal. Well, that's just a couple of months old, right? And even if your WordPress site is even just a year old, now you have so many more other problems. So there's actually web pages you can go and find just the ways people hack into these old, outdated versions of WordPress. Even to the point where I find blog posts where they literally say, type in this exact code into their site, and then surprise, you get into their site. And there's literally blog posts that say, you type in this code, go here, check on this box, and you can actually add a user to any WordPress site and just log in and do whatever the heck you want to do to that site. So it's kind of scary, right? So, I mean, I'm sure you heard of that, where some people get in because of old, outdated, or insecure WordPress or websites. So what's the answer? Well, the answer usually is a bunch of superstitious stuff that gives you things to do but doesn't actually help. They tell you to rename WordPress or rename your database, but then they go and log in on an unsecured Wi-Fi, and then it doesn't matter what your database is, then someone gets in. Or it doesn't even matter how much your site's locked down. If you're using an old plugin that has a hole in it, then that's the back door that gets around all of your security. Even to the point where I was going through and I was figuring out what's the best way to secure WordPress? And I found this blog we're looking at right now here, this hackertarget.com, and they list literally about 10 or 20 ways that people use and the exact order they use to get into your WordPress site. And they list all these things. And one of the things that they kind of make fun of here is they say, well, don't make your username the username admin. And the reason for that is someone can go to your login form to log in, and they can type in, I'm going to log in as username admin, and then this message says either that's not a username or that is, but the password's wrong. So what this blog post is saying is, well, you're an idiot if you name your username admin, because they can get halfway there and they can figure out that's the way you log into your site. So I thought, okay, well, this site, maybe they know what they're talking about. This is a hackertarget.com. They tell me not to use username admin. So do you want to know what I did the other day after I was reading this? Well, I said, okay, hackertarget.com. They say don't use the username admin to log into your WordPress site. So I went to their login page and I just said, okay, well, let me try to log in as Robert Plank. And what you're seeing here is it says, okay, Robert Plank, invalid username. And then I thought, okay, I literally just read a blog post telling them, or when they were telling me not to use the name admin for my login. I thought, there's no freaking way that that's a login on their site, right? So what did I do? I typed it up and it said, look at how the message has changed. They said, okay, we have that username, but not the password. So kind of silly how like a lot of these guys who have, I mean, they have 100 different solutions for you to protect your WordPress site, but then they themselves don't follow it. So that's another issue, right? Is that we have these WordPress sites and we don't know how to manage it all, and it's scary because now they're out of date and there might be all these ways we hadn't even thought of yet that people might be breaking into your site. So are your WordPress sites up to date so that even if admins your username, they still can't get in? Well, here's a problem with a WordPress version that's a little bit out of date is, once again, there's the exact instructions where if you put this exact URL in the web browser, you can delete any file off a WordPress site that has this exact plugin installed. Kind of scary, right? And then in this version, they gave you this gobbledygook here where you can find a WordPress site with the plugin installed, and you can actually add files. So they say, here's how to delete files, here's how to add files, and even if someone wasn't much of a computer programmer or hacker, they could just copy this and be able to delete files off your site and then add files to your site. I mean, a really, really scary place to be. And then, so then when we were asking around and even looking around the internet at people talking and even complaining a little bit about all the problems they're having with their WordPress sites, right? This one person asked, how many websites do you have? And this person said, the number makes grown marketers weep, 6, 11, 50, 2. And we found out from looking at people using our backup creator plugin and other plugins is it's about 10 to 15. And I think the number is low because people don't want to add their test sites that might also let hackers in, right? So then people are looking into, well, I want something that updates WordPress so that it gets rid of all the security holes and all the backdoors. And then people even post on saying, every week my WordPress sites are being hacked. It's bloody constant. And so I mean the answer that knocks most of it out is just to have the latest WordPress, and that takes care of most of the issues. I mean, unless your WordPress password is something like 1234, then usually having the latest and greatest up to date, that solves 90% of any kind of the hacking problem. But going back to the original problem, okay, well, we have all these sites. How do we manage them? How do we keep them up to date? Well, I'm about to tell you. But you got to keep your sites and plugins up to date, because just keeping them up to date, just doing that, fills in most of the holes the hackers usually get through. And I mean, a lot of the times, like, it's WordPress itself, if it's really old, or some of these plugins. Like there was that list I showed you earlier where just at trying to secure your site opens up a security hole in that particular plugin. Or trying to add a podcast to your site, that particular plugin has a way for people to get in. But guess what? They find the hole, they patch it, you click the button, you update, and now you're done. So by having the latest and greatest stuff, well, it keeps your site in tip-top shape, and that way if a plugin breaks, the newer version of that plugin is usually fixed. But the problem is, well, if you have 2 websites or 1,000 websites, then you'd have to go and log into each and every site and click on the update button. Well, what if there was a tool that showed you which of your sites were out of date, and then you can go ahead and update them? And I know that WordPress is slowly trying to put in like these automatic updates, and I hate them. I hate automatic updates because I don't know if my sites are getting or are going to break with the latest version. And some mornings I wake up and it says, "Surprise! We just updated WordPress for you." I'm like, okay, well, I would have rather have done that on my own time, and I would have rather had 10 sites I want to update. Click a button, update them all, look at them all, cool, we're done, right? And not just have to go and scramble and say, you updated WordPress for me. Now I have to go and make sure that the update didn't break my site. And so we're about to show you this tool that's never before been seen called Website Remote. And I honestly want 1 million websites to run on this. And I think we can get to that goal. And maybe you personally, maybe you'll be 150 or 250 sites out of that or whatever, but I eventually want to get this website remote WordPress management tool to run on 1 million sites. And what I'm going to show you is all these things that will make your life a heck of a lot easier, I think. And the first one is that you can keep track of what sites are hosted where. And you can keep track of, for example, which sites are your test sites, which of your client sites, which sites are on different web hosts, if you're going to migrate them over one at a time or consolidate them into one account. We're going to show you how to one-click log into your site. So this solves that spreadsheet problem, right? You can log into just one dashboard and then be able to jump from there into any of your sites without having to type in or remember passwords or anything like that. And then, so we said that WordPress is one thing to be updated, but plugins are really the thing that gets updated the most and where most of these security problems have. So what we want to be able to do is update the plugins on all of our sites, but not just blindly, right? You might just want to update some of the plugins, like especially if we hear that one particular plugin is a problem, just go on all of my sites and update them on all of my sites. Or what if I build a site a certain way and then a year later build it a different way? Maybe I want to see what plugins are on the first site but not the second site, and we want to just keep it all up to date. WordPress, plugins, and themes, just keep it all running and keep it all safe so that we don't have to worry about it anymore. So the first problem we're having is where the crap are my WordPress sites, right? Maybe you have all these sites and I don't even know how old they are, or are they still up and running and online? And even then, well, maybe I have just a jumble of sites, but I need to categorize or organize them somehow. And maybe I even just to keep it simple, just where are they hosted, right? Maybe I have some websites on GoDaddy, some websites on HostGator, and I don't know where I'm going to move them, but maybe for now, I just need to get my bearings and need to know where stuff is. I need to know how old are those sites and when did I last log in or update them. Well, the answer to all these problems is to organize your WordPress sites in this tool I'm about to show you in the next couple of seconds called Website Remote. So the place to go right now, and I'll just do this with you, is at websiteremote.com, like a TV remote. WebsiteRemote.com. Websiteremote.com. Here's the site, right? Here's the place where you can grab your account. And so once I have my account, I'm going to log into my site. I'll put in my password. But what this screen shows me is that I have a few sites that I'm managing here, right? I see I have a site called Dropship CEO. I have a site called Paper Template. I have a site called Webinar Crusher. And so this is a list of the WordPress sites that I'm keeping track of. And so even just having this list is on the right track, right? Because even just having this list means that, okay, well, now I know that I have 20 sites, or now I know that I have 50 sites, things like that, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at, say, this Dropship CEO website right here, and we can see, well, cool. Now I know that I have this version of WordPress, this theme, and these plugins. And so what I could do at any time is just click on the button and update just one of the plugins on this site, and then see how I'm doing from there. So give me a second here. Okay, so we can let this run, and then once this is done, well, then the site or this particular plugin in this particular site is now updated. So even while that's running, we can say, okay, well, out of all these sites, I can just pop a few things down, and I can see, well, 2 of these sites have out-of-date WordPress versions. A couple of these sites have out-of-date plugins, and this plugin is still running. And so I can get a better handle on what the heck I need to do next, right? And at any time, you can just say, well, if what I want to do is update everything, I just click on that. But maybe I just want to update just all of the the WordPress sites or like just the plugin sites or things like that, but I can definitely get a kind of like a bird's eye dashboard view of all the stuff I've got running on my sites. And so I can click on this websites tab here. And so these are the sites I'm playing around with, right? And so I've got these three sites, and I can see that, okay, well, on this one in particular, WordPress is 6 months out of date. That might be something that needs my attention. This one's 15 months out of date. Some of these plugins are a little bit out of date. So now I'm kind of getting somewhere, right? Now I'm like, I can start to get a handle on the sites that I'm playing around with. And so what I want to do maybe is maybe I want to add in some other sites. So I have one of my sites is a blog called robertplank.com, and I've got that, and now that's in my list of sites. And once this goes and connects to robertplank.com, I can say, okay, well, now I've got these WordPress versions that need updating, got some themes, got some plugins, but now it's like, okay, like it's now I can start tackling the problem, right? Now I can just go and check off these one at a time if I'm being careful, or knock them all out. And then I can say, all right, well, 4 sites is okay, but now I want to add another one. I'm going to add a site of ours called incomemachine.com. And what I can do is now it's added this incomemachine.com site to my dashboard. So now what we can see is we have 4 sites, but then this one here needs to have our special plugin to accept commands. And the cool thing about Website Remote is all you need literally is WordPress and the Website Remote plugin we give you, and then you can manage all your sites, right? And you can click on any of these, and you can just get a look of what's WordPress is running, what themes running, what plugins are running, is it online or not, all that good stuff. So okay, so anyway, back to what we were doing. So this income machine site, I need to get it up and running. So we have this plugin that we provide to you. So I'm going to right click and save it onto my desktop. Okay, so I've saved that. And then I'm going to install this. So I'm going to click on this, and it sends me over to my income machine login for WordPress. And hopefully, this is the last time I have to even enter the password for this site. And this is the last time I have to even remember this site exists, because Website Remote will remember in this list that this is one of my sites. So what we can do is go to Plugins, Add New, and then Upload Plugin, and then we'll just browse to the thing we just saved. So I'll install that. Whoops, already exists, I think. So we've got our website remote. I got to update that. Okay. So we're going to go to our settings here for this website remote plugin. And so just, yeah, what we would have done is we would have uploaded this and put it on here. And then if I check this, then it should be in our list of sites. Okay, cool. Now notice how that little plug mark disappeared there. Well, now we can see that now we have 5 sites that we're updating, and now the number is looking really cool, right? And now we can just go and update all 21 plugins, all 19 plugins. So think about what you would have had to do before. You would have had to go to the site, you would have had to log in, you would have had to run the updates, but now we can just click on update all and update all of the stuff on the site right then and there. So that's pretty cool, right? That's a good start. But then we say, well, all right, well, look at what I'm dealing with. I've got a blog called robertplank.com, and I've got these different sales letters and things like that. But I mean, you can imagine if we've got 10 or 20 or 30 sites, now we're kind of back where we started, right? Now we're just kind of trying to juggle or manage all this stuff. Well, here's where this thing called groups is really, really handy, because we can organize our websites into these different groups. And I can say, well, I'm going to have my test sites in one group, okay? I'm going to have maybe my client sites I get paid for. Maybe I'll add some websites into that. And then I could even say, well, maybe I have some websites on HostGator, and maybe I have some sites on GoDaddy. And that way, I mean, I can just organize this any way that I want to keep track of this. So then I can say, all right, I'm going to go to my websites. And so I definitely need to put some of these websites into some categories, right? And so we can say that, well, maybe my client sites are these 2 sites, and I'm going to add this to the client sites. Okay, so now we can see that these 2 sites are client sites. Then I might say, all right, well, a few of these sites are running on HostGator, so I'm going to add that group. And then maybe the other sites here are going to be running on GoDaddy. So I'm going to add that group. And then, so now we can see that now we kind of have a better handle on what kind of sites we have. And maybe we can say that maybe Webinar Crusher here, maybe that's one of my test sites. And then we can say maybe Robert, maybe Income Machine, maybe that's one of my personal site. Okay, cool. So now we've just kind of checked a few boxes and organized things. And now we can say, if we look on our groups, now we can say, all right, well, cool. Well, here are my client sites, and here are my GoDaddy sites, and here are my HostGator sites. And then what we can do is go to each of these sites and maybe get the process started. And maybe if we say, like, I want to have all my sites on HostGator, want to move them off of GoDaddy. Well, now I just need to log into this account, this account, this account, and then get them transferred over. And I mean, we've all been there, right? Like you might have bought one website just to have just the one account. Maybe you bought another web hosting account just to host 10 sites. And if you wanted to get to the point where you wanted to have them all in one place, this is how you do it. You would say, here are my GoDaddy sites, here are my HostGator sites, and then we can go back and if we're done with these sites on GoDaddy, you can just check these boxes and say, all right, this one and this one, we want to move them over to HostGator, move to that group, and now we can say, whoops, now we can go over to the HostGator here because now those sites are off of that category. Now we only have one left on GoDaddy. So we're going to take paper template and we're going to move that one over to HostGator as well. Well, cool. Now that group is empty, and now I can look at just my HostGator sites. And now I can say, well, cool. Now that project is done. Now these are all on HostGator. Or I can look at just my test sites and look at just those test sites. And so what's cool about that too is, okay, so let's say that you're looking at your websites and you're looking at just your test sites. Well, now you can say, I want to update the plugins on just my test sites. I want to click on that button and update the plugins on webinarcrusher.com and give that a couple seconds because it has to go out and talk to that website and update the plugin. And then now those plugins on your test sites will be all done. And so the cool thing about that too is that we handle this end of things. We handle the website remote end of things, and for some reason one of the plugins had an issue, but we tell you that too. And so maybe this one plugin is stuck or out of date or you have bad permissions or something, but at least that way we can go in and update the plugins, and then if anything needs any more of our attention, we can do that. But just by categorizing your groups, you can see how now this is how you can manage this way better than a spreadsheet or a text file or any of that stuff. You load up your plugins into this website remote dashboard, and then you can group them. And even when you look at this like dashboard view, you see these icons, right? We can see that Dropship CEO has out-of-date plugins and themes. This one has out-of-date WordPress and plugins and themes, so we can just see what needs updating. We can go and update all the WordPress, update all the plugins, and all that kind of cool stuff. This is where you can log in and you can load up literally all of your sites. If you have multiple sites in folders on the same website, list them all here. If you have subdomains, things on different web hosts, you list them all here, and then you can group them. And if you need to do things like move your sites or know which sites are your test sites or your client sites or your personal sites, then this is the place to manage all that. This tool called Website Remote that'll help you and get you to finally keep track of your WordPress sites. Because I mean, just think about it. What if today was the day you kind of blew off managing your sites, and then 6 months or a year later, then that's when you get hacked and you say, well, geez, I wish I just clicked on the button to update my stuff. But then rewinding back to today, you don't want to spend all day updating your stuff. Well, now that you can use Website Remote to keep track of your sites, you know what's out of date, you can click on the button, and then you can update what's there. And I mean, the only trick, the only catchy thing is that you have to be able to log into this site to drop in our plugin. But then once you do that, now it's done. Now, if you forget the password again a year from now, then you can get back in just by clicking, and I'll show you that part in a second too. Because you said, all right, now where were my WordPress sites? Solve that. But now, how the heck do I log into my WordPress sites? Well, you might say, what was that password, right? Maybe like you'd say, okay, well, I don't know my password to get in. All right, I got my password. Need my username too. All right, so I got to recover that. And luckily, there's like a lost password link. But then I say, well, now the lost password says, what's your username? What's your email address? And maybe you say, I don't know what is my email address I used, my Gmail or my Hotmail or my friend's Gmail, or was it even a test email address so I can't even get the password back? I think I might know which email address, but what's the password for that email account again? Well, you do have to log in one time to get the plugin on there, but weeks or months from now, if you forget the password, no big deal because you don't have to deal with passwords ever again using Website Remote, and I'll show you. So we set up all these sites using Website Remote, like Dropship CEO, Income Machine, and you can use this to see what's out of date and update things, and that's all good. But what if you had to get into one of these sites, right? Maybe you had to get in and upload, fix an image, or edit a post, or things like that. Well, that's where this login link comes in. We can go to this Dropship CEO site, click on the login link, and now we're logged into this site. See how there's this black bar here? That means we're logged in here as Lance Tomashiro. And what we can do once again is click on log out of this Dropship CEO place, and we're logged out. Once again, I say I don't know, I'm not sure my username, my password, not sure how to get my password back, but we can go to Website Remote, and we can wait this for a second to update, and we can just click on the link to log into Dropship CEO, and then boom, check it out, black bar again. Now we're logged in again. So that's kind of cool. Right now you can just go to this one single website and just be able to click on one single link and get into any of your sites. And there's no passwords in play here. We don't store your passwords. You don't have to remember passwords. It just clicks a link and just lets the gate open for you to log into WordPress as long as you click the link through our site. So check, and so I'm about to blow your mind too, I think. So one thing that people might not know is, how like you got a website, right? And you can open up different tabs. Well, you can hold down the control key and click on links, and it'll open things in different tabs. So I can just go to these login links and click, 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 and check out what I've just done. I'm logged into my Dropship CEO site. I'm
Hi,
logged
I'm
into
Robert
my
Plank, and welcome to
paper template site if I mute that tab. I'm logged into my Robert Plank site. I'm logged into my Webinar Crusher site. So I've just got all these sites, and if I want to log in, like once again, I can log out here and I log right back in by clicking the link inside Website Remote. So that's pretty cool too, is I can just say I want to log into all my sites to see what's up. Hold down control, click, 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 click on the logins, and now I can go to those sites. I can go to my websites here, and I can choose just to log into my HostGator sites, or just log into my test sites. Hold down the control click on the login, click, 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 and now I can just jump to any of those sites. That's pretty dang cool, right? You can just one-click login using our website remote tool. So now we've said that, well, before managing WordPress sites was just a huge headache, but not managing was even scarier because you could get hacked. But now you know where your sites are because website remote gives you that list. Now you can log into those sites because there's the one-click link and just jump in. Now you don't have to remember any passwords. It's probably good too anyway, right? It's not good for you to have your passwords written down or anything like that. And the cool thing about this is that it might get a little technical, but there are no passwords in play here at all. No one's storing any passwords anywhere. You just click on the link and it lets you right into WordPress as long as you have Website Remote installed on the site you're jumping to. But literally no passwords involved in here at all. You can just click on the link and log into those sites. So you know where your sites are, you know how to log in, but now, well, what plugins are even running on my site? Because, I mean, WordPress gets updated maybe every, I don't know, 3, 6 months. And if you're running a 6-month-old or a year-old version of WordPress, then there might be one or two ways to get in. But let's say you might be running 20 plugins, or maybe running 30 plugins, and you might have 10 sites. Well, now that's 200 different plugins. And if out of those 200 plugins, maybe 20 of them are out of date, maybe 10 of them have little security holes. Well, now that's 10 different ways that someone can just get into your site potentially, right? So, hackers get in from WordPress, but they get in way more often from outdated plugins, an out of date podcasting plugin, out of date security plugin. And now, how old are the plugins I'm running? Well, maybe they're years and years old. And how do they compare with the plugins on my other sites? And maybe, like we said, maybe you had a certain way of setting up websites a year ago, and you say, you always install these 5 plugins. And maybe nowadays you say, well, I usually install these 10 plugins, right? I install this SEO plugin, this security plugin, this caching plugin. And maybe you want to get some of your sites up to date compared to the others, but you don't know what plugins are where, and that's where Website Remote comes in handy once again. And it comes in handy on this plugins page, right? Because we showed you this front page, right? You can see all your sites, you can add and delete your site and see your updates and click on the button to update things. We've got the websites here, and we organize them into groups. We can just narrow down which group, and we can once again get a bird's eye view of what sites are out of date. See, like this WordPress is 6 months out of date. This is 22 months out of date. Some of these need updating. Some of the plugins need updating. But then if we go to just focus on just the plugins themselves, this is one of my favorite things about it because I can list all this stuff and I can see what I'm running on my different sites. So I can say, okay, well, Dropship CEO and robertplank.com. Well, what's the difference? Well, if I wanted to compare just those two, I could add them to a group and then put them and just see just the group. But if I'm just looking at all my sites, I can say, well, Robert Plank runs all-in-one SEO pack, but none of my other sites do, right? So maybe I can say that maybe my other sites need to run some kind of an SEO plugin, right? Or I can notice that papertemplate.com here runs W3 Total Cache, but none of the other sites do. So maybe I can go and log in and add a caching plugin and see how things are working there. And so this way we can just see a couple different things here. We can see in this grid which sites have a certain plugin and then which sites are missing that plugin. And then we can see which sites have certain versions of a plugin too. And we can say, okay, so I want to update the all-in-one SEO on robertplank.com. I want to update this security plugin. Maybe I'll go through here and I'll update this redirection plugin and I'll update this post snippets plugin. So we can just kind of easily see what our sites have and what's out of date. And I can just go and update these 4 plugins in one click. And once again, like we said, you don't have to go out and go and log into these individual sites and wait for them to finish. You just click on the button, it goes out, it runs, and it updates just those exact plugins you specify on those sites. So you can pick and choose, like I want to update one plugin here, 2 plugins here. You can just hit the machine gun button and update everything at once, update just the plugins. But this has been really helpful for me, especially when I say, well, what's out of date and what's not, and am I missing anything in these sites? Like, do I need to have this organized series in other sites or things like that? And I mean, I've heard and I've tried of other kind of managing plugins out there, and they all kind of suck. Like there was one in particular where, for no reason at all, it worked on half my sites, not the other half. Another plugin where it worked too well, and it actually let anyone into my sites, which I didn't like. And so nothing like this existed. So we had to go out there and create this thing where if you wanted to see which plugins are out of date, you can see it on the grid. If you want to see, in this case, which themes are out of date, you can see, okay, well, a lot of these themes I have are out of date and things like that. So using Website Remote, we can manage, if you want to manage just the plugins, which for me was probably the biggest headache. Not necessarily WordPress, which is like an every 6 month kind of thing. I have to make sure everything's updated, but all these different plugins that all have these little things out of date. Some of the free plugins, some of the paid plugins. I wanted to make sure that everything was up to date. So how do I keep everything up to date? Because I mean, you can't just leave WordPress as it is because it gets older and older and more prone to hacking. And then the automatic update sucks because I mean, I don't know if you've gotten the emails, but I get the emails saying, congratulations, we just updated WordPress for you. And I'm thinking, well, I had stuff to do today, but instead of doing the stuff I was going to do to make money, I have to go back and make sure my sites are still running because WordPress went updated without me wanting to do it. So maybe I don't want to update everything all the time, or I want to update just when I'm ready for it. And so you choose the updates with Website Remote. So you go to Website Remote, we can go to Dashboard Updates, and I can't stress this enough. This is not WordPress, but it sure looks like WordPress, doesn't it? Because you wanted to make this look familiar to you, and you can scroll down and we can see on all of our sites how's WordPress out of date. And like, how bad does it get? And so we might want to say, well, maybe we just want to update just the sites that are like really old. I'm not going to do this right now because it might take a couple minutes for us to update WordPress on these sites. But I can go and say, okay, well, maybe I don't need to update the newer versions of WordPress, but I want to update the ones that are over a year old. And just click on just these two and just update WordPress on Webinar Crusher and on robertplank.com. I can go through down here and say, all right, so paper templates out of date on all these sites. Maybe I'll update just paper template. Maybe I'll update just the video player plugin, right? Or you can go and update just the themes. And so you can get either as as vague or as fine-tuned as you want, right? We can update everything on all of our sites if we don't want to deal with it, or we can go in and drill down and just grab just the WordPress or just the plugins on here right there. And so that is the website remote WordPress plugin. And so you can use this to update your site. So you can go through and update WordPress, update plugins, update themes, and update it all at once or update it a little bitty bit at a time. And even if you're just using this for your own sites, we need if your money coming in depends on these sites up and running, well then you need to make sure they're up to date. If you're using this for test sites, well if you have 10 or 20 or 30 test sites, well, don't you want to have all your test sites and all that up to date? You want to know which ones you have out there? Well, now Website Remote will help you with that too. And if you have client sites, well, then this is a really good deal because you get the site set up for them. Then they pay you month after month just to keep the site up and running. And your little secret is that what they're paying you thousands of dollars for per month is not to necessarily log in, just to click the button and make sure that everything is up and running and up to date. So what we showed you was you join us inside of websiteremote.com, you log in, you add the site you want to add, and then you install our special plugin, and then that will probably be the last time you have to type in any kind of password to log into those sites. You can click on the button to log in just to that site and jump right in there. Or you can click a button update WordPress plugins or themes. So that is how to update your or your WordPress sites using Website Remote. So what if there was a way for you to monitor all of those sites in one convenient location? Well, I did it for me, but how cool would it be if you had access to something like that as well? What if there was a way for you to ping your sites and you can see that list of sites and see which ones are up and running, which ones are not up and running, right? Because I mean, maybe we forgot to pay the web host bill, maybe we forgot to update the domain name, maybe the site crashed or got hacked or something. But wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it give you some peace of mind to be able to see that list of all your sites? And if this list is too long, that's why we have it categorized into groups for things like that. And we can just see a list of all your sites and see what's up and running and what's not. And then if something's not up and running, then we can go investigate that. But if it's all up and running, we can say, great, now I don't have to check each and every one of these sites. Now I can rest easy. So you can ping your sites and see what's up and running and what's not. You can log in to any of these sites in one click. I mean, I can't stress this enough. There are no passwords involved here. We don't store your passwords. You don't have to remember passwords. You just have to get logged into Website Remote, click on the button, and it just lets you right into that site that you've chosen. And you can even use that special control click thing I told you. And if you're taking notes, I think this is probably the coolest note you could take, right? If you can control click on a link, what does it do? It opens it up in a new tab. So when you log into Website Remote and we show you a list of your website and it says log into the site, log into the site, log into the site, log into the site, you can hold down the control key and go click, 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 and now you have all those sites opened up in all those different tabs, and now you can do whatever you want. And just that alone just saved you 5, 10, 15 minutes of looking up all those passwords, typing them all in, you click, they're all open. You saw that we had that grid where you could compare your sites to see what stuff goes where, what themes are running on each of your sites, what plugins are running, which sites have some plugins that other sites don't, which plugins are out of date so you can update just those, and you can update WordPress plugins and themes, all of them, or one at a time. So wouldn't it be great if there was a tool that did all those things? Well, I've been showing you what it is, and it's called Website Remote. It's the WordPress management dashboard. So you can use it today in the next couple of seconds on up to 50 WordPress sites. Now here's what's really cool. Here's something we never done before is that this thing called developer rights are included, which means that out of these 50 sites, these can be your client sites. These can be sites that do not belong to you. These can be sites that you get paid on a monthly basis to update and maintain over and over again, right? So out of these 50, you might even say, well, geez, 50 sites, I don't even have 50. Well, you actually might, because maybe you have 10 test sites, maybe you have 5 sites that are actually live, maybe you get 10 client sites. Now you're already halfway there to those 50 sites. So we gave you 50 sites because we want to give you enough breathing room where your business can grow and you can use it as much as you want. So you can log into any of your sites in one click, update WordPress on one or all sites, or update just like a 1 year older or longer version of WordPress, but update as many versions of WordPress as you want all in one click. Update all or some plugins in one click, update all or some themes in one click, update everything at once or one at a time, and easily organize your sites with groups. So you can say, well, here's all of my test sites, here's all of my client sites, here's all of my HostGator sites, here's all of my GoDaddy sites, here's all of my membership sites, here's all of my sales leader sites, here's all of my content blogs. Doesn't matter if you have tons and tons of blogs and tons of sites, now you can easily organize them with your group. So total value today of 1329, and this is what I use to manage all of my sites, because like I said, I tried about 4 or 5 different solutions and they all just sucked. And so I finally just broke down and spent for the last several months something that would actually work, and it'll work for you too. Have you ever tried putting together that spreadsheet of what sites and software you have? I know I made fun of it earlier, but I mean, it's kind of making fun of myself because I've done it. And maybe you've done it, maybe you started on it, or maybe you found that spreadsheet months later and said, oh man, remember when I started trying to keep track of all my sites? And even just 10 sites is a lot to keep track of unless you use a tool like Website Remote. I wasted a week on that spreadsheet. Hopefully you didn't, but if you did, well, either way, your sites are going to go out of date. And the options for you are either to let them go out of date and die and maybe get hacked. That's not a good option. Another option for you is to spend all day long updating stuff. That's not a good option because you don't have any time left to make money to build your business. And finally, the option I think that works for you is to install Website Remote right now, and that way you can one click log into your sites, see what's running, and update it all. It's just $17 every 30 days to run 50 sites. And even Mary Duff in the audience says, I have 2 spiral bound books full of sites and password for all kinds of stuff. 2, not even just 1, but 2. I mean, I can only imagine. And I mean, that's how I was too until I had this kind of tool. So it's just $17 a month for 50 sites. So if you want to look at it as 34 cents per site to keep it safe, then do it. Put another way, that's just 56 cents per day. Put another way, what if you got paid even just a measly 200 bucks for someone, for one client to get the site updated and all that stuff? That more than pays for itself. 17 bucks a month is cheaper than the domain and the hosting for your site, just for one site even. So use it on your sites or client sites, and if you want to get paid monthly to keep their sites updated, well then great, you can put that in your little report to them, and just the one click login feature is worth this. So go here now, go to www.websiteremote.com. You'll get started today. Take this final step, go there with me. I'm going to go to the site right now. The site to get access to all this cool stuff is at www.websiteremote.com. That's websiteremote.com. You scroll down to the bottom, and I mean, we give you one click login to all your sites, a dashboard to see all your sites you're doing, update WordPress, update plugins, update themes, group your sites. You go to the very bottom, and here's the way to get the 50 site license. You join now, just $17. Click on the button right now, do it with me, and it'll take you to PayPal, and you'll pay $17 every 30 days to Double Agent Marketing LLC. As soon as you pay, you'll be able to go into that members area that we showed you, and you'll be able to add your first of several sites to the login and manage using Website Remote. So now you can see how everything's going with that, how everything's up to date. You can click on everything and update it. You can log in and do everything you wanted to and more, and actually get your life back and actually have fun and get the magic back when you first started. And this thing called making a website and this thing called WordPress was this coolest thing, and you can add in any theme and any plugin, and the tool that was supposed to help you, that now kind of you're helping the tool, well, guess what, now you win, now you get it back. And now that you can manage all your sites, now you can just click on any button you want and make any kind of site that you want it. So you no longer have to get bogged down with keeping track of how many sites you have, where your sites are, how to log in, and how to update it. It's all taken care of you inside of websiteremote.com. So I'll see you in the members area for websiteremote.com. Go ahead, do it right now. Go to www.websiteremote.com, and I'll see you in the members area. And I can't wait for you to tell me how this has changed and saved your life and got you to take it all back and get it all organized without it taking all freaking day long. Websiteremote.com. Go there right now. This is Robert Plank from websiteremote.com, and thank you.